Today's video we'll be talking about inequalities in two triangles, and more specifically the Hinge theorem. So what the Hinge theorem states is that if two sets of sides are congruent, then the longer side is opposite the larger included angle. So if I look at my figure, I can see that Vx is congruent to RT and VW is congruent to RS, but their angles are not congruent. Angle V is 88 degrees, angle R is 35 degrees. Well, since angle V is open wider, I know that that side, WX, has to be longer than the side opposite the 35 degree angle, ST. So WX would have to be greater than ST. One way you can think of it is kind of like a doorway where you've got a hinge and you're opening and closing this door. As it's becoming more acute, more closed, obviously the distance between those two endpoints is a lot smaller than if I open it up wide. If I open it up wide, now they're further apart. So the wider open it is, the further apart the opposite side is. That's all that the Hinge theorem is saying. And I can also think of it conversely as well. The converse is also true, that if I again have two sets of sides that are congruent, the larger angle is going to be opposite the longer side. So in this case now, I still have my two congruent sides. AC is congruent to DF, and CB is congruent to FE. They didn't give me the angles. This time I can see the side lengths, though, that are opposite them. And so because 12 is a larger number, I know that the angle opposite the 12 is going to have to be larger than the angle opposite the 9. So the measure of angle C would have to be greater than the measure of angle F. So if we look at example 1, we're given a figure and we want to know how the measure of angle 1 would compare to the measure of angle 2. So if I look at the sides opposite those angles, opposite angle 1 I have a side length of 34, but opposite angle 2 I have a side length of 33. So since 34 is greater than 33, I know that the measure of angle 1 would have to be greater than the measure of angle 2. Looking at our next example, we have a figure with some cars and they're a certain distance from the shopping mall. And I want to know which car there is further from the mall. Well, first of all, they gave me angles on the outside, so I need to figure out the angles on the inside of the triangle. Up by car A, I can see that the exterior angle is 90 degrees, so that means that this angle inside is also 90 degrees. And down here by car B, I've got 80 degrees, so the interior angle is 100 degrees. So when we're talking about the distance then from the car to the mall, 100 degrees is greater than 90. And therefore that means that car B would have to be further apart. Again, I can use the Hinge theorem because I have congruent sides. This is 5 miles, this is 5 miles. This is 3 miles, this is 3 miles. It only works if I have two sets of congruent sides. But because the two sides are congruent, the one with the larger angle is going to have the larger side opposite it. So car B is further away. Okay, we have one more example here. I'm going to find the possible values of x. Now, at first glance it looks like we don't have enough information, but we actually do. There's a few things we can figure out from this. So first of all, I notice that I have, on my triangle on the right, I have two congruent sides. So that means that the angles opposite those two sides are congruent. So I have two congruent angles there. Well, I can only have one obtuse angle in a triangle. And because I've already got two acute angles, or two angles that are congruent, I know that this angle here would have to be acute, because there's no way I can have two obtuse angles in a triangle. So if that angle is acute, then this angle is also acute here. And since I have a linear pair down on the bottom, if the angle on the right is acute, then that means this angle has to be obtuse. So now what I need to see is, do I have two pairs of congruent sides? Well, I do. It's just a little bit tricky because I'm sharing a side. So that's one set of congruent sides. So I'll mark that with 2 hash marks. And then my other set of congruent sides can be these here. And the reason I chose that is because of where they've given us the measures for x. X is right here. I need to look at the angle opposite that, and then I have another expression with x that's opposite that angle. So now I have everything I need. I've got two sets of congruent sides, and even though I don't know the angle measures, I know one is obtuse and the other is acute. So because an obtuse angle is greater than an acute angle, I know that opposite my obtuse angle, the 4x minus 3, has to be greater than what's opposite the acute angle, 2x. And then you would just solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides and add 3 to both sides. And I get that 2x is greater than 3. And then if we divide by 2, x is greater than 1.5. So any number greater than 1.5 will work for this figure. That concludes the video. Thank you.